galactic sentient broadcast. Target, planet Earth. Begin invasion in 3, 2, 1.
Greetings, invaders. My name is Scott. This is Book Invasion. Thanks for watching. If you want some sci-fi, horror, and fantasy goodness, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. Appreciate it. Today we're going to be doing the How Do You Read a Book tag. This tag was created by Julie over at The Hungry Bookworm. Go check out her channel. I will link to it in the description box below. I was tagged by Ramsey at the channel Rajathon. Thanks, Ramsey, for the tag. I actually have time to film. Check me out, doing back-to-back videos too. Love it. So there are only a few questions, so I do not have a planned response for these, so let's see how it goes. All right. Question number 1. How do you go into reading a book? Do you research, read the back cover, watch the reviews, or just go in blind? I would do only a couple of those things. I would kind of check out the cover of the book, check out the author, read a bit of the synopsis. I wouldn't really look up other reviews or read other reviews. I would check maybe the star rating at Goodreads to make sure it's not like abysmally low. And usually I look at the page count because I need to know how much time I would delegate to it. But otherwise, I go into them kind of blind with a little bit of knowing what it is. There's some books where I can get recommended them from friends and say, hey, you should check this out. It's pretty cool. I usually look for things that are like, they're like spaceships. There's got to be a bit of a snark or humor, dark humor. Those are things that'll put it on my TBR. Some action, some horror, some brutality, monsters. If it has some of those, it kind of checks the boxes. And then I don't really need to read the description or reviews of it so much. Like, I want to have my own interpretation of it because my humor is different than someone else's humor. So obviously the silly, goofy books that I read, people aren't really going to go and say it was a great book. So these jokes are just filled with dad jokes or something. It's stupid. So most of the time I go into books with a minimal amount of info, unless it's something I'm really debating on reading. And I'm like, do I really want to read this and spend time? Then I'll look up reviews and say, you know, what did my friends think? What did Booktube think? Which is dangerous to do anyway. But if there are people that I know and I trust reviews for, that I'll see that they did like it, I don't need to really listen to their entire thoughts. If it's something that they liked and enjoyed, that's enough for me. I'll close the video without spoilers and go in and read it. So that's paid off good for me for the most part. I would say it's successful. I feel like I have a good grasp on what I think I would enjoy and what I don't. Next question. Number 2, do you take a book at its face value? Do you look at the cover and expect what's on the cover or something else? Yeah, I think I do. There are book covers that I feel like could use a bit of sprucing up after I read the book, but there is a point to the cover, there's a point to the artwork, there's a reason that it's kind of there, and I feel like some authors use that to advantage and others don't. There are some books like, I'll give you an example. The Sheriff of Uranomir by Michael Rubens. This was one of the first book reviews that I did. Here's the book cover. What is this? But you read the blurb on the back, which is by Stephen Colbert. Okay, you get a feeling for that now. The quote is, a science fiction book your grandmother will love, if she's a lustful, violent lady. Sold. Got it. I'm buying this. I'm getting this book. So this is like, what is this book about? It's just about some goofy spacefaring adventurer and his antics about saving the planet Uranomir, which is short for Your Name Here, because all of the other planets in the galaxy have been bought out by corporations. And this one is not, and that's why it says Your Name Here. The audiobook of this was narrated by William Dufresne or something. I would recommend it to go check it out, but that's not what this video is about. That's an example of a book cover that is not representative of what it entails inside. But I loved it. Here is one that that I did love, and I do love the cover for this. And this cover does represent what's in the book, but you kind of have to read it to figure out what they mean. So here's a book called The Hike by Drew McGarry. There's a path. There's a cricket, house, a mummy, hovercraft, some lumberjack-looking dude, a vampire thing, some castle, some big eye in the middle, an anglerfish, wrestling guys with wolf masks on, a swan, a spirit ghost thing, coral reefs, and a crab. What? Yes, please. Yes, I'll take it. On the back, there's a giant-looking lady. Her name is like Fremona or something. Jellyfish, a coffin, a sarcophagus, I guess you would call it, and some tower. That's an example of a book that is representative of the cover that I did love. And yes, this was probably a cover buy for me. I didn't know much about it going in. I did read his earlier work, though, The Postmortal, which I love. Anyway, those are two books that I would recommend and plug for you. If you're not sure if you should read them or not, why don't you go watch my review videos, and then you can answer yourself question number 1 if you go into a book reading somebody's reviews. But I will tell you that I love those books. If that's enough for you to check them out, please do. Anyway, so yeah, I look at the cover, I kind of analyze it. The artwork is really a big piece for me. There are a lot of books that don't put a lot of effort into their artwork, and it shows. It doesn't mean the story's bad, but I think that's a barrier that authors are creating for themselves. Toss a little money into your cover art if you can, not to say, privilege and yada yada. Anyway, we'll go off topic of that. Number 3, next question. Do you read a book as the author intended? Ramsey said, do you overanalyze fiction and look for symbolism? No, I read a book, I feel like I sink into the feeling of the book. I sink into kind of the themes. I don't analyze symbolisms. I don't analyze writing style. I get the 30,000 foot view, and I kind of piece in things that highlight to me. So when I get a story and I read a book, I say, I don't really go for like, okay, X happened. What does that symbolize? I say, X happened. How was that played out in the greater story? Is that a good twist? Did I see that coming? Is it something that was expected? Or is this escalating the story to a higher level? And how did that play into this story as a whole? I pick out some of those pieces, and I think the way that I do reviews is kind of getting more of the theme, I suppose, more of the feeling for it. Like when you listen to a band or something, you don't analyze the notes individually or the pieces. You kind of listen to the song as a whole, and you feel how all the sounds combined kind of wash over you. I guess that's a good analogy. Is as a music fan as I am, I appreciate the music as a whole when all the band members are playing than I would just picking out a screaming like guitar solo. Like guitar solos are cool and I like it, but the drop when the beat hits and all the forces are coming at you full force, like that's the moments that I like. And the same goes with books. Like I'll like little pieces, and maybe there's a little twist or a piece of it. I won't analyze the piece itself. I'll analyze the whole thing and say maybe, that was good or bad or something like that. But overall, this book was great. I don't really hold it against authors about writing styles and saying, oh, I didn't like how they wrote paragraphs or something. If it's blatantly obvious and the language is bad and something like that, I'll still give the author the benefit of the doubt that the story as a whole is what they're trying to portray, even though pieces of it weren't great. So I guess that's how I read a book. And maybe that's how the author intended. I like to think so. I don't get into the weeds too much about intricacies. I look at the higher level view and kind of all of the pieces combined. Next question. As a book lover, reader, reviewer, do you read a book differently knowing you're going to review it? Do you venture into other genres for a review? I don't really read differently. I listen to books on audio in my car, and I mean, it's tough because if I want to make a note about something, I have to like pause the audiobook on my phone, open up like the notes app on my phone, and try to dictate like something, make sure I call out this, and then I have to look at what chapter 34, 10 minutes and 15 seconds, X happens. And it's kind of just a really big pain. And then my dictation isn't accurately translated, and it's a big mess. But I've done that for most all of my book reviews, except for a few on e-reader, and I can highlight, which is nice. And I can see things on a page, which is nice. Audiobooks are a little bit trickier, but I've managed. So I don't think I really read things differently. I don't, obviously, without having a Booktube channel, I wouldn't pause and I wouldn't take those notes. I would just kind of say, oh, that was cool. But if there's certain things I'm going to review, I need to call them out, the goods and the bads and whatever. So yeah, I guess I read differently as a reviewer, just in the fact that I would pause my reading to take a note. Before, if I was not a reviewer, obviously I would not do that. Do you venture into other genres for a review? I guess so. I mean, when I started reading, I was mostly sci-fi, and there's a broad range of sci-fi from literary sci-fi to hard sci-fi. But yeah, pre-Booktube, I would not have picked up any of the kind of horror books that I have. I wouldn't have picked up the fantasy books that I have. And I think it's mainly either because the publishers have provided them to me as books to review, or other people out there had recommended them, or I've seen other people talk about them, which goes to question number one, that I thought I might like to read. And so yeah, fantasy and horror weren't in my regular repertoire, my reading repertoire before Booktube. I may have evolved into that realm eventually, but I think now that I am doing reviews, those kind of, you can get burnt out on any one specific genre of reading it so much. So fantasy and horror are the two go-tos, obviously, that I like to venture into. And they're not just to do a review, it's just to get my brain in a different realm for a little while, to come back to like spaceships and fighting like the